Hi guys, welcome. So I've really been wanting to make a post about postpartum recovery and what my journey has been postpartum recovery wise, and I figured it would be a lot easier to just sit down and do a video because there are a lot of like specific items that I want to talk about, and so it'd be a lot easier to just show you what they are and what they look like and how I use them versus trying to type it out. So that's why we're doing video. I am wearing pants, they're just shorts, so hard to see. Also, I'm going to be just basically not holding anything back with this. I'm going to go into pretty explicit detail with certain things just because I want people to feel prepared. I didn't feel too unprepared, but there was also a lot of stuff that I just didn't know about. And I feel like people talk more about the pregnancy and the labor and delivery, but the postpartum recovery portion kind of gets left out and forgotten. And that's very important. So yeah, I'm gonna go into explicit details. So if you don't want to know details of what postpartum recovery is like, don't watch this. Not gonna be for you. Yeah, and maybe if you're a guy, unless, I don't know, yeah, I'm just gonna say if you're a guy, probably don't watch this. Just probably better for everyone. So I waited to, I think a lot of people talk, like if they're going to make a video or post about their postpartum recovery, they do it kind of like right after they give birth. I wanted to wait until my postpartum journey. I don't think it's ever fully over because your body's always changing and evolving, but I wanted to wait until I was like healed to make this post. And it's just so I could give you a full timeline of what my journey was like as far as postpartum recovery, and then kind of show you what was helpful for me and everything. The problem with that is that I thought, oh, it might be 6 weeks. Like they tell you around 6 weeks is usually when you're healed and you're good to go. You get the green flag. I thought, maybe a little longer. And I am over 4 months postpartum now, and I'm still not healed fully. Still not fully recovered, which is unfortunate and frustrating, and I get a little angry about it at times, but that's also the reality of what has happened for me. And so I figured, you know what, I'm just gonna make this video now. I'm almost fully recovered now, finally. I'm almost there. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks I will actually be there, but I figured, I'm just gonna make this post anyways. I'm really close to the finish line. I'm just gonna do it and hopefully give some people some hope that it does get better and it's not terrible if you do happen to have a very long recovery journey. So yeah, I'm just gonna dive in. So if you are not familiar with my birth story and how the labor and delivery went for me, I will have that blog post where I wrote it all out linked in the post so you can read that and everything. It was a wonderful birth. In my mind, I thought when I was laying there on the bed, I had just given birth, I had a vaginal birth, and I thought, I just did that. I was on this high, this emotional high of I just did that. This is amazing. That wasn't so bad. I could do this over and over again. I was so encouraged and so excited. And then everything very quickly went south from there. I did not have an episiotomy. I didn't have to be snipped in any way. Apparently I was a fantastic pusher. The nurses and the doctor that I had, they told me, they're like, you were a powerhouse. I pushed that baby out in 50 minutes. Apparently I was a fantastic pusher. Everything happened great. I was feeling awesome. And unfortunately, there was a lot of damage that happened internally during birth. So nothing my actual skin externally, I didn't have to have anything snipped or whatever, but internally, as Beckley was coming out, there was a lot of tearing and damage that happened. So I ended up in the OR for close to an hour, I believe, and I had 48 stitches, all of them internal, up in my vagina. And I remember there were 3 people present for when I gave birth, 2 nurses and 1 doctor. And when I was rolled into the OR, there were 7 to 9 people at any given time present monitoring my situation. So clearly it was an extreme situation. And I fully believe that I came very close to having an emergency hysterectomy because the bleeding just wasn't stopping. They were having a very hard time stopping the bleeding. So I didn't have any stitches externally, where a lot of people, when they get stitches from birth, it's either from like having a C-section, they'll have them here, or they'll have them down like in their vaginal area leading up to their rectum. I have friends who've had episiotomies. Like, they're not fun. Nobody wants to have an episiotomy, but you know, they're external stitches. My stitches were all internal, up in there. You couldn't see them. So your postpartum recovery journey starts at the hospital. Mine started as I left the OR. I was rolled out of the OR and taken to a back area where they could basically monitor my situation after I had come out of surgery, basically. Not really surgery. Do you call it surgery? The operation. I was getting all those stitches done. I was coming out of that. I don't think that counts as surgery. And they were basically just monitoring me there, and Jackson was able to come back, and he brought Beckley with him so I could see her, and I got to see him, and he got to see what was going on. And basically I'd had an epidural, and so they were letting the effects of the epidural come off, and they were just monitoring the situation. Once they deemed that I was okay and that everything seemed to be healing fine, you're then taken to your recovery room, a recovery suite, whatever you want to call it, and you stay there until they release you from the hospital. And for me, I had, what's the term? Basically my platelets were really low. I can't remember the specific term. Oh, I was anemic. And my platelets were really low. And so a part of my postpartum journey there at the hospital was that I needed to have blood work done every few hours, basically, to monitor how my platelets were. Like, they wanted to make sure that my platelets were coming back up and that like new blood was being created, because I lost a lot of blood, a very large amount of blood after giving birth. It was, I think, so they measured it in like rags, and the rags were like, if you took I hear Beckley crying. Guess who woke up from her nap? We're talking about what Mom had to do after she pushed you out. I think Beckley's just gonna join. So she also loves cell phones, so this will probably be fun. Oh, Sully's gonna join too. We've got the whole squad. Hi, buddy. The hair on your nose is all funny. Hi, dude. Okay, so what was I talking about? Oh yeah, so I had to have blood work done a few times. So basically that just means they come in, they do the whole draw blood, they send it out to the lab, they test it. So that was a big part of my journey. I don't know that that would be a big part of anybody else's. Oh, and I was talking about the rags, that was the other thing. So yeah, they measure blood is like blood loss as in rags, I think is what it was. And from what I could tell, the rags looked like they were the size of basically a dish towel. And they count up how many rags it took to like mop up or soak up the blood that you had lost, basically. So they were blood soaked rags, about the size of a dish towel each, and I had lost 17 rags worth of blood. So imagine wringing out 17 soaked dish towels, and that's basically how much I lost. So it was a lot of blood. So they were monitoring like my blood and my platelets and making sure that my body was responding well. They also gave me plasma. Soon after I got into the recovery suite, I was given plasma to help with that whole recovery process. Another thing I was given was I can't remember what it was called. I'm terrible with names, especially medical names. I'm sorry, guys. But they basically came in and they said, we're going to give you this pain medication. It is heavy, like heavy pain meds, but you are going to be very sore after all of that. So we want to give this to you. And I was like, totally fine, whatever, give it to me. I was still technically on the effects of the epidural at that point, so I didn't feel any pain. Like, I couldn't feel anything. It was great. But I knew that was going to wear off, so I was like, give me what you got, I'll take it. So they gave me this heavy pain medication, and they basically told me, they were like, just a forewarning, it's going to work great, but it can cause incontinence. Like, you may pass stools, like you may crappy pants basically, but you're not wearing any pants. I was still in my my gown that I gave birth in. I was still in that. And so they were like, if you happen to pee or crap your pants or whatever, like past stools, let us know. We'll get you cleaned up. Because I still, like, I couldn't move. I still, epidural effects, couldn't feel anything, whatever. And there were a couple times where that happened, and, you know, it sounds gross saying it, but when you're in the moment, you don't care. Like, those nurses, the medical professionals you're working with, they kind of just become like your squad. Like, they are your girls. They are there for you. Like, they are helping you every step of the way. They're so encouraging. Like, every medical professional we worked with at our hospital was fantastic, like, so good. So yeah, in any other situation, I would be like, oh gosh, no, I can't even imagine, like, just not having control over my body and just, like, crapping on a table and having to say, like, can you clean me up? Like, in any other situation, you're like, no, that's, like, the worst, most horrifying thing you can imagine. In that situation, I could not have cared less. It was totally fine. You are Miss Observant, aren't you? Another thing is when you're still at the hospital, they really want you to be able to pee, I think, within the first 24 hours. Hey, Sully, stop growling, dude. I don't even know what he's growling at. I swear. Does your dog, if you have a dog, does it ever growl at something really random? Are you smiling at him? She thinks he's so funny. Like, Sully's just sitting over here, and she thinks he's so funny. So I thankfully, once the epidural wore off, they sent in 2 nurses. I believe it was 2 nurses, or 2 medical professionals, we'll say. And 2 girls, and they came in, and their job was to help me stand up for the first time after giving birth. And after the epidural had worn off and everything, their job was to help me stand up, help me get into the bathroom, and help me try and go pee. And they stand there with you as you try and pee, and then they help you walk you back to the bed. So when you go to pee, you are given a Peri Bottle, and so I've got my whole, like, box of things that I want to show you. So when you're in the bathroom, they give you a Peri Bottle. This is what they give you at the hospital, and this is just the Peri Bottle I used my entire postpartum recovery. And you basically fill it with preferably warm water because it's a little more comfortable, and then you spray it up there after you pee because you can't wipe. They don't recommend wiping. And so after you pee, you spray this. I was able to pee. That wasn't an issue. It was just a little bit, but it was something. I was told by my sister-in-law that if you are really nervous about not being able to pee, you can take peppermint oil, peppermint essential oil, and you can drop a couple of drops into the toilet bowl, and then that will help trigger the urge to pee. And then the ladies showed me what to do after that to basically tend to that area, and this is what I did for several days following giving birth. So at the hospital, you'll be given some disposable underpants. They are very, very sexy. And I've got some leftover pairs here. So this is what they look like. They're like these, you know, just thin boy short type things. They're one size fits all, so really stretchy. On me, they were a little big, but, you know, don't really care. So you have this, and you open it up and get it, like, over your legs, and then before you put it on, you take 2 giant Maxi Pads, like the biggest pads imaginable, and again, the hospital gives you all this stuff. So you take 2 of these and line them up so that front to back, this is completely lined, and then on top of this, you take one of these cooling packs. Again, the hospital will give you this, and there's like, you keep it in here, and you'll feel there's a bubble in here, and you would squeeze it until that pops, and then give it a good shake, and you'll immediately feel it starting to get cold, and you lay this on top of the 2 pads, and then this is inside the underwear, and then you put it on, and that is what you wear, and it feels like you have a lot of stuff, like, weighing down there. Like, you kind of waddle around like, is this gonna stay on me? It stays on, it's fine. But it's a weird feeling. You feel like you're wearing a proper adult diaper. And this, like the cooling pack, do not skip this. It feels amazing. So yeah, you'll do that. You'll switch that out every few hours. That's what I did. At the beginning of the postpartum recovery stage, there is a lot of bleeding. And this is going to be different for every woman. Like, every woman's body is different. For me, the super heavy bleeding, where I felt like I had to change things out every hour to hour and a half, that ended within like 2 or 3 days of leaving the hospital. That went away pretty quickly. But, you know, I still had basically like a heavy period's worth of bleeding for probably a month, I think. And then around the 6-week mark is when the spotting finally ended, and there was no more bleeding. So that's just something to keep in mind. I would recommend stocking up on some pads, because you can't use tampons or cups or anything. So stock up on pads, bleeding is going to take a while, and then also stock up on liners, because you're going to have spotting for a while. Even after like the true flow ends, you're going to have spotting. So have liners as well for when it finally eases off. But for me, like the really heavy bleeding, I only used these for a couple, like I think a day after I got home from the hospital. That first day I was home, I think I used them, and that was it. And then after that, it was just like using the biggest, thickest Maxi Pads I could find, and using those for a few days, and then I was able to switch to just like normal pads, and then slowly it weaned off. Also, the hospital does give you the underwear like I showed you, but you can also purchase from Mom on Amazon. You can get their underwear, and theirs is just a little bit more secure, a little bit more sturdy, and it's gray, and it's a little bit more seamless, if you get me. Like, you don't really see it through like pants and stuff. It was a little bit more, I guess, just not as obvious, and it felt more secure. So I really liked Mom's disposable underwear. It is more expensive, whereas the stuff at the hospital is completely free. So I used like the stuff at the hospital until I felt like I needed something better. Plus, this underwear was huge on me. And right after I gave birth, my stomach was still quite swollen and large, so it was fine, but my stomach shrank very rapidly, and it got to the point where this stuff was like falling off of me because my stomach had shrunk so much. This is perfect because it actually fit me. So that would be something else. Another thing is, so you make your sandwich that goes up in your underwear. You've got the pads, you've got this. Before you pull it up, your best friend will be Dermoplast. Stock up on Dermoplast. Like, I've got so many cans of it. I'll just grab a few. So many cans of it here in this basket. Like, so much Dermoplast. You're going to take this and you're going to spray it all up in that vagina, rectum, everything. Just spray it all up in that area. It is going to be your best friend. Even after the bleeding, excuse me, even after the bleeding really kind of stopped, as far as like heavy bleeding, I was still sore, and so I would like put a pad in my underwear after I would pee, poop, whatever, do my business. I would put a pad up in my underwear, and then I would take the Peri Bottle and I would spray all up in there, make sure it was good and clean, and then I would take my Dermoplast and I would spray all up in there, and then I would pull the underwear up and I'd be good to go until the next round. What I did and what I would recommend you doing is in your bathroom, just have some kind of basket or container, and have all of this stuff just stored in it. Keep it nice and close to your toilet and easy to access, because you're going to be using this stuff for a while. I was using the heavy pads, I would say, I think it was around like a month, and then it slowly tapered off into like normal pads, and then I think spotting was done by around the 6-week mark. Something else they gave me, if you have stitches, to help them stay like soft and not get too hard and not become too uncomfortable, you can do Sitz Baths, and they give you this lovely thing here. And what you do is you fill it up with some warm water, and then you put this on top of the toilet bowl. It just kind of sits in it, and then you sit on this, and you can basically then soak your stitches, your vagina, in that. And you do that for a few minutes. I think it was like 10 minutes or something. I did that pretty religiously at the hospital. I was at the hospital for 2 days after giving birth, and I did that pretty religiously at the hospital a few times a day. But then once I got home, I think I only did it a couple times once I got home, and I didn't do it anymore. They will give you pain medication. I think it was like ibuprofen and Tylenol, I think is what it was. I can't remember for sure. But they give you pain medication to help manage the pain if you get stitches or something, which, you know, I got a lot of stitches. So I was religious on the pain meds, just like taking them to help manage things. So that I feel like is pretty general. Like it might be more severe in some women's cases, might be less in other women's cases, but I feel like that's kind of the basis of a lot of women. If you deliver vaginally, that's kind of what you're looking at as far as immediate postpartum care. For me, following that was I went to the 6-week checkup, and you know, we thought everything was fine. They were like, you know, you're gonna take a little longer to heal. I was still very sore. It feels like, hang on, Sully's itching himself. Okay. It kind of feels like you have, like, rubbed something wrong. Like, you got, like, a brush burn or something up in there. That's kind of what it felt like for me, and, like, sore muscles. And so the 6-week appointment, that checkup, they were like, you know, it's going to take a while to heal. Like, don't be discouraged. Just give it a few weeks. You should be fine. I was like, okay. And I was cleared to start taking walks and do minor workouts. But I started going for walks, and I would notice that I would walk not even like half a mile, and I would be so sore. Like, my vagina just ached. And so I ended up calling the gynecologist office that I go to, and I talked to my doctor, and I was like, listen, I'm still really sore. I just want to make sure that everything is fine. I just want to make sure things are good. And they didn't do an internal check at the 6-week mark. I kind of wish they had, but they hadn't. And so I was like, I know that you think that all the stitches should be healed, but I want to make sure that they are. Also, they were dissolvable stitches, so they were supposed to just dissolve and then be gone. So I went in, I think it was like, I was gone on vacation the week after I called them, and so I went in right before vacation, and they looked, and sure enough, there was a stitch right towards the opening of my vagina. So if I just like ran my fingers like across my vagina, I wouldn't feel anything, but if I stuck my finger in, not even to my first like knuckle, if I just stuck my finger in, then I would feel it off to the side, into the back a little bit. And it was this hard little nub. And I told her, I'm like, there's something there. So I went in and got it checked, and sure enough, there was a stitch that hadn't dissolved, and the skin was starting to, are you getting hungry now? Maybe? We'll see. You're blowing bubbles. Or are you pooping right now? Oh, yeah, she's pooping right now. Good girl. And so the skin was kind of like healing over it, which is not what you want. And so they said, what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to snip off like where it was tied and then pull it out. And I was like, okay, that's fine. Let's do what we gotta do. So they had me lay down on the table. They got the scissors, and they had me in a gown, and I feet up in the stirrups, and she went in to snip it, and it hurt like heck. Like, it was, not to scare people, but it really, really hurt. And my poor doctor, she felt so bad. She was like, nurse, she felt so bad. She was like, I'm really sorry, but these scissors are blunt. I'm gonna have to go and get a different pair, because she couldn't cut through, they're blunt. And I was like, okay, that's fine. So she goes, she gets a different pair of scissors, she comes back. And then she's like, I'm so sorry, to make sure I get it, I'm gonna have to pull it taut, pull the stitch taut. Again, it's up in my vagina, so I'm gonna have to pull it taut and then cut it to make sure I get everything. I was like, okay. So she pulled it tight. I am in horrible pain, but you know, holding it together. And I really wish they could have given some numbing agent, but I don't know if that's something that they're able to do. And then she snipped it, and that was good. And then she's like, okay, there's a little left over. I'm gonna try and pull it out. I was like, okay, sounds good, sounds good. And she tried to pull it out, and up until that point, I hadn't made any like yells of pain. It had been more like that kind of thing. And when she tried to pull it out, like I couldn't control myself. I actually like cried out, like, ha, like that kind of a thing. And she's like, okay, nope, we're not even gonna pull it out. Like, that should dissolve fine on its own. The nub that was causing the irritation and the pain, that's gone. Should be good to go. You're playing with your giraffe. So they got that, and I was given was I given a cream? No, I wasn't given a cream. I was just told to leave it alone. So I went off on vacation, and I noticed that it was healing. I wasn't getting as sore afterwards, so that was all good to go. A couple weeks later, I felt like, okay, I feel like everything's feeling good now. I'm not getting sore after walks, should be fine. So I started to just take my fingers and just kind of gently feel around up in there. Because feeling your vagina after you give birth it's a whole different thing. And before I tried anything, I just wanted to see how it felt like for myself and just kind of ease back into all of that, especially since my vagina went through a lot of trauma, we'll just say. And I was feeling around, and it just still felt sore. Like just tender, really tender. And so I again called, and I said, you know, it's just still really tender. I just want to make sure that, you know, everything really is healing fine. And they were like, yep, absolutely, come on in. And they were really great. Like, anytime I was concerned, because of what had gone on with all the stitches and everything, they were really great about wanting to check. So they checked it out, and they're like, good news, stitches are all completely dissolved, they're good to go. But you do have, it wasn't technically scar tissue, but it was like that. Like, you do have some scar tissue, again, around that area where the stitch wasn't healing correctly, and in that back area of your vagina. So that's where you're feeling the soreness. And they're like, does it feel rough to your touch? And I said, yeah, it feels a little rough to my touch. And they're like, yeah, that's the scar tissue. So they gave me a cream, this little ointment, and I was told, like, every day to take a teensy amount of that on my finger and just rub it on that area. Are you hungry now? And to rub it on that area to help the scar tissue heal. Okay, is it time to eat? Let's eat. We've got a bottle right here ready for you. So I did that, and you know, it was starting to heal. It was feeling better, and then I went in a week or so, a couple weeks later, for a pap smear, and it still hurt. Like, that was very uncomfortable. And so she said, like, clearly, you know, the scar tissue is getting better, but it's not gone. You're clearly still uncomfortable. And this was about a month ago, I think, when I went in for my pap smear. And so they gave me some more of the ointment and told me to just keep applying it, and that would help. So now I'm at the point where I am able to take a finger and I can kind of insert it like halfway in, and I don't feel that roughness, and I don't feel like serious discomfort. But, you know, I'm still not to the point where I feel comfortable like putting 2 fingers in or a tampon or anything like that. And we are now a little over 4 months postpartum. So that is my postpartum recovery journey thus far, and all of the tools that they kind of gave me, and the methods of healing in the process and communication that was had. Hopefully that was helpful for you. By making this video, I don't want to scare anyone. Like, it's been very frustrating to not be healed at the 6 week mark. Like, I feel like you just, after you give birth, you're like, okay, 6 weeks and then I'll be healed and good to go. And that has not been the case for me. And yes, it has been very frustrating and upsetting, but at the same time, manageable. And I've still been able to thoroughly enjoy life and enjoy being a mom. And a lot of things have gotten back to normal, but some specific things have not gotten back to normal. So, you know, it just is what it is. If you end up having a longer recovery like I've had, no, it's not fun, but is it the end of the world? Absolutely not. It doesn't really hold you back from, like, living your life. And are you falling asleep right now? Kid. Goodness gracious, we can't do that. Oh, another thing is, if you get hemorrhoids, Tux cream or Tux pads, let me show you, I think I've got them in here. I got hemorrhoids, bad ones. They hurt so bad. It makes, like, you feel like you're training for, like, hyping yourself to go compete in the Olympics every time you go to the bathroom when you have hemorrhoids. They are awful. But Tux Medicated cooling pads, you can get these on Amazon. They will save your life after you go to the bathroom. It's a lot. It feels like you're giving birth again. It's a lot. Take 1 or 2 of these and clean your rectum area, and it will feel so good and so soothing, because it hurts. It really hurts. Honestly, in my mind, hemorrhoids were worse than birth. I also got an epidural, so if I hadn't gotten an epidural, I probably wouldn't say that, but I did. So, yeah, hemorrhoids, worse than giving birth, in my opinion. Yeah, you're totally falling asleep, kid. Yeah, but anyways, that's basically, I think, everything as far as postpartum recovery goes. If I were to get pregnant again, and I found out that I was susceptible to having the same level of tearing with another pregnancy during giving birth, I probably would just schedule a cesarean. I would just get a C-section, because I think C-section, like, standard recovery time for that is also around 6 weeks. And I'm thinking I could have had a C-section, which is a big surgery, but also I could have been recovered at 6 weeks probably, or maybe 8 weeks if it took longer. And I did vaginally, and it was a smooth delivery, but I am at 4 months post and still not fully healed. So fun times. But yeah, I just wanted to make this post, talk about postpartum recovery and what my experience was, just because I said it before, I feel like this is the part of the pregnancy and bringing a child into the world that people kind of forget to address and talk about, and it's so important, and there's a lot that kind of catches you by surprise if you just haven't done, like, research or just don't know, and there were things that definitely caught me by surprise. So this is my story, this is my experience. Every woman's story and body and pregnancy and delivery and postpartum is different, so just because this is mine does not by any stretch of the imagination mean that it's going to be yours. But I do hope that it was helpful and hopefully insightful and encouraging. Yeah, I'm going to stop talking now because I'm pretty sure I've been filming for close to 45 minutes. All right, I will see you guys in my next post. Bye.